in mind, we put our recordings on our website. And we are 5 minutes past the start time, and we have a lot to cover, so we're just going to get started here. My name is Greg Bem. I'm one of the faculty librarians. Thank you all for joining today. This is the latest version of what is GenAI and can it be used ethically? And all of the images in this slideshow have been generated by Gemini Nano Banana, the image generation tool embedded in Gemini. So here's the agenda for today. We'll talk about learning outcomes. We'll do a brief set of introductions. Then there will be a mystery activity. Then we'll do GenAI basics. We'll talk about ethics. We'll do another mystery activity, and we'll close by talking a little bit about AI in the workforce. So here are some learning outcomes for this session. Understand definitions and basic knowledge of generative artificial intelligence, or GenAI technology. Highlight basic tools, functionality, and trends. Explore higher ed and professional contexts. Identify potential problems and benefits of the technology and ethical considerations. Ponder recommended practices for using GenAI here at SCC. So let's do some introductions. We have 3 folks in the session today, and it looks like we have 1 person online who is only online, and the other 2 folks are in the room. So feel free to use the chat if you want, but we'll say our name, program area, or whatever course or courses you're taking at the college. And what are your thoughts or feelings on today's topic? Would we like to start in the room, perhaps in the far corner over here?
Yes.
Thank you. Toby, welcome.
The importance of where we are in the context of AI and how it shows up in various places. As far as my thoughts or feelings on the topic, I would just say complicated. In both good and bad ways, like it's a complicated thing.
Absolutely. And no spoilers, but those complications will be coming up again and again in this session. And online, we have Laura, who's dual majoring in business and accounting, has previous degree and experience in libraries. Awesome. And you have lots of feelings, lots being in bold, about AI. Welcome to the club, Laura. Thank you for being here. And since you're online only, feel free to enter anything into the chat and I can verbalize it for you. Or if you raise your hand, if you want to unmute at any time, just let me know. So we're going to start. This is actually a new mystery activity. We changed this from last quarter. We're going to use a tool called AHA Slides. So I'm about to break out of the PowerPoint, but if you can use the QR code, and you're all going to be my guinea pigs today. The QR code's coming back. Don't worry. So here we go. So if you're able to, okay, it looks like 3 people are in here, and I'm assuming that's the 3 people that are not me. Hopefully that's true. Why don't we give a little celebratory pressing of the K key, or if you have an icon that allows you to do the confetti. Does anyone see that on your device? Okay, you have different things on emojis. Cool, good to know. Thank you. Okay, meanwhile, we have a few different options here coming up for the first question. What are some popular GenAI tools we're seeing these days? What have you heard of? Just to get a ballpark idea of what folks know. I see Laura chatting. So Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity. Right. Seems to be the... Okay, wow, we've got a lot of emojis, a lot of emotions. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I think I just click on it. Do I just click on it? There we go, yes. Arrow keys. Okay, next question. How have you or someone you know used GenAI tools in the recent past? Good or bad examples are okay. And by good or bad, I will let you define what that means. Let's take a minute to respond to this question. I'm just going to experiment by closing the QR code. Ah, nice. Okay, okay. Very nice, very nice. Okay. If I do this, I can do the confetti. Thank you for allowing me to experiment here, folks. Okay, we've got one response so far. Use it at work often, various tools. Love it for brainstorming and fleshing out ideas. Okay. I like this this platform. It tells you that people are actively typing, so I don't have to actually guess if we're ready to move on or not. So I'm just gonna wait, sip my coffee. All right, we've got learning SQL, finding narrow sources. Example, return only from extension.edu sources. Okay, and I have used GenAI to help write code to support a workplace task. So far, effectively, personally, for recommending TV and movies based on a description of my mood. We will see an example of how I've used GenAI later in this presentation. And finally, we've got another, and this is the final question for this mystery activity. Final question on ethics. How strong is your ethical code when it comes to AI? 1 to 5. It's either unformed / you don't know, you might not even know what ethics are, or 5, very strong. And looks like we have 2 people said 4. And I don't, okay, here we go. This one's a little harder to see participation. Okay, and 1 person has said 3. Good. I love how it took a little bit longer for that final one to come in. That means there's some thinking going on, perhaps. Okay, cool. How is this platform for you? Aha slides. Good. Okay, cool. We will be back to aha slides in another mystery activity later, though I kind of just spoiled the mystery, didn't I? All right, so we're going to move into the next question, the big question, big first question. What is artificial intelligence? Would anyone like to chime in on with their own definition on what is AI? No pressure. Okay, I see some chatting going into the chat. How would you put artificial intelligence into your own words? It's a good question, especially because it gets thrown around. It's thrown around a lot as both as an acronym and as a term. So, all right, we're gonna continue, and I'm gonna read what gets entered into the chat in a moment, just to continue on here. Artificial intelligence, or AI, and this is defined by IBM, is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate being a keyword here, human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. Massive amounts of stuff here. So thinking about how we're simulating, well, what are we simulating? These different really broad ideas is a complex thing, messy thing. Applications and devices equipped with AI technology can see and identify objects. They can understand and respond to human language. They can learn from new information and experience. They can make detailed recommendations to users and experts. They can act independently as well, replacing the need for human intelligence or intervention. A classic example being a self-driving car. And in 2024, most AI researchers, practitioners, and most AI-related headlines are focused on breakthroughs in GenAI, a technology that can create original text, images, video, and other content. To fully understand it, it's important to first understand the technologies of which GenAI tools are built, machine learning and deep learning. And that's the definition on IBM's AI webpage. In the chat, we have from Laura, AI is just a series of code algorithms that are called large language models. So basically, they can identify patterns in language and find responses to queries based on that language model. That's very succinct, great definition. And that is what we're seeing with the GenAI technology. If these technologies that are foundational to AI sound interesting to you, including machine learning and deep learning, write those down. There's a lot of really good YouTube videos that explore technically how they work. So where have we seen AI in popular culture? Here's some examples that I came up with in terms of films and books. Minority Report, WALL-E. I put WALL-E twice. That's because I love that movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey, Alien, Her, Ex Machina, Terminator, The Matrix, and really pivotal books that came out around the same time as some of those movies. I, Robot, Snow Crash, Neuromancer, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Any other places you've seen it come up either recently or historically, things that should be added to this list is like must-sees or must-reads? Your favorite sci-fi, AI sci-fi stories? Ooh, is that with a C or a K? KLAR. Amazon? Okay. What's the gist of that one? Robot Friend. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. I will have to read it. Anything coming into your mind? Okay. And online we have a lot of Neil Stephenson's work. Neil Stephenson, who wrote Snow Crash, has AI stuff. Also, you can't forget the entire franchise of Aliens. They're always humanoid robots. Diamond Age. Diamond Age. That one. One also that I just thought of is Star Trek.
It was literally Star Trek and data, right? Like, yeah. Is HAL 2001? I think HAL is 2001.
Yep, that's 2001. Cool. We will expand the list with your contributions. My goal is to end up having just a wall of text on this slide in a year. So jumping back to GenAI, which, as we saw with the IBM definition, is what is in the spotlight, this kind of superficial or content-based form of AI. GenAI runs on, as Laura said, large language models, or LLMs. So that's another keyword that you should think about writing down or noting, with advanced machine learning and pattern recognition technology. An LLM, there's a lot of them out there, but some of them have names. Most of them have names that end up showing up in the tools that are produced and put out into the world. ChatGPT is one of these tools, and the LLM is GPT, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. In the tool DeepThink, R1 is the LLM, and R stands for reasoning. LLMs, again, as Laura mentioned, are trained on large sets of data. These data sets can be everything from books to articles to social media posts to transcripts and more. So the tools use these very, very, very large data sets, millions upon millions of information sources, and scan them and learn from them through various algorithms that are based on human language. Where do we find GenAI? So you can see GenAI popping up a lot these days. And if there was a bigger room, I might poll the room, but I think most of us are familiar. We see them in web browsers. We see them in mobile apps. We see offline apps that you can download that have LLMs that you can run right on your computer with your own technology, your own hardware. We see standalone tools. And then we see this technology embedded in tools we've been familiar with before GenAI was a thing, including Microsoft Windows and Office. Office recently being rebranded to Copilot, which is their GenAI technology. Android, Gemini, Google Gemini is now in most Android phones by default. And Adobe. What are some other tools that you've used that have AI embedded in it? Where there might be a magic AI button or something like that. Have you seen those in any?
I was reading on Kindle.
Kindle.
Yesterday. Yep, on Kindle Unlimited. And there was a little, and it was just last night. It looked like the Gemini stars. I imagine it probably is related. And it was asked questions about the book. And it had a suggestion of questions to ask. And I clicked one to test it out and it was wrong. So that was interesting.
Interesting. And that was on the app or the e-reader or both? Okay. Okay, all right. DuckDuckGo and Google. Okay. Some web search, Laura says, has an AI answer box at the top of the search query. Yes. And spoiler alert, that will come up in our special topics, or at least one of the workshops for special topics later this quarter. But I will write those down. Anything from you, Melinda?
Not new tools so much as I just see it, they're becoming more kind of insistent, pop outs as opposed to like, Copilot or something sitting kind of there on the side in the background to choose to use it. Now I'm seeing more like, hey, it reminds me of the paperclip that used to show up here. Go away, clippy.
Yeah.
Stop it, it's just becoming a little bit more insistent and in your face as opposed to being kind of passive. So I'm seeing more of that kind of everywhere.
God, that's a really good point. I love that pervasive and invasiveness. But you use the word pop-up. It's kind of has a lot of connotations. If anyone lived in the internet 20 years ago. Also, like when we think about where and the location, we can think about the modality or format of this type of content. So text, audio, image, as we're seeing in the slideshow today, video, this type of technology is in a lot of spaces impacting the creation of content across the types of formats that we often use. So it's everywhere. Here are a few popular GenAI tools that can generate content. OpenAI's ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot, Google Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, DeepSeek. I mention these because if you are interested in getting some experience or exposure to the technology so you know what it's capable of, if you look at these popular tools, they will help give you a good understanding or basic understanding of how the tools work and what they can create. Would you put any other tools on this list, anybody? Anything that you think is kind of a pivotal, foundational GenAI platform? Perplexity, yep. Okay. let's talk real briefly about prompts, iterations, and automation. So GenAI interfaces, when you're using the tools that I had on the last slide or other tools, they're often, not always, but often similar to search engines in that there is a box that you add input into, you type your input into it, and that is referred to as a prompt. You are prompting the tool to respond. So the prompt is literally a phrase or keywords or directions or instructions that are entered into that box. I say search box, but it is really a prompt box. In many of the platforms, not all, but many of them, you can have conversations with the tools. Just now realizing this should be a better contrast. I have to fix that. So you can be iterative with your instructions, meaning you can add on, tweak, change, and more across multiple prompts in a single conversational interaction. This can also be referred to as remixing in the context of image and video generation. If you were to use Sora's image generator or video generator tool after you've generated an image or video, you can remix what has been generated with new instructions. How well that works and refers back to the previous generation is to be determined. And then there are a couple things that folks should know about that may or may not be just buzzwords or trendy terms, but often we hear the term prompt engineering referring to expertise around using tools and having an ideal understanding or a good understanding of what prompts you can use to use the tool effectively. And that's often in a workplace setting and in the workforce. Also, across higher ed and in the workforce, we hear this term AI literacy and the idea that we as users of these tools can become literate in them. Both of those terms are very fluid, and there are a lot of different people with different definitions of them, but these are terms you could learn more about if you, again, look them up in YouTube or found and read some articles about them. Anyone want to add anything to the idea of prompts and how these tools work? Right. Oh, I need to change the animation on this slide too. Agentic AI. One other final thing is that there's this idea that kind of what is emerging and what will be the next phase of Gen AI is invisible and or more powerful. So when we talk about agentic, the root of that word is agent, an agent being a figure or being or simulated person that can do complex tasks with simple prompts. So if you ask for, this is a really popular example, if you ask the ChatGPT agent tool to create a 7-day vacation to South Florida, it would be able to not only give you an overview of that trip, but also give you links to the flights that you would need to buy, or even buy them for you, provide reservations for specific programs, take care of the Florida transit for you, all of those things it could do with a single prompt across multiple hours. So set it and forget it kind of thing, semi-automated work. And obviously there are some big implications as to how that would impact not only our personal lives, but also different jobs. If there is an agent that can do it that's AI, why do we need travel agents anymore? Why do we need to do the work on our own with our spreadsheets and our emails and our credit cards, et cetera? So a lot to unpack. Has anyone used any agentic Gen AI technology for complex tasks? Yes, I will write it on the board. Molt book, if you haven't heard about it, is Molt as in like what crabs and lobsters do. Basically, it's a place where individual human users can upload their agent AIs that they've coded and developed, and it's a quote unquote social media for agentic AI. And so there's a lot of it. It looks exactly like Reddit. So there's a lot of threaded conversations that may or may not mean anything. But it's something that you can go see and take a look at. So real quick, let's hear from folks in the room, some examples of prompts. What prompts have you used in the past? What types of tasks have these tools helped you complete? Could be really simple or something more complicated. Get to you soon, Laura.
To start, looking at authority and credibility. And so I was shifting my lessons from like the crop test that kind of thing, which is okay. Help you create an outline of, of a lesson based on the 5 W's and credibility, relating it to the crop test. It would help me kind of organize my thoughts in terms of how I might want to structure a lesson.
Very
It's
cool.
really helpful.
Nice. That's awesome. And which tool did you use for that?
That one, actually, I tried it both in Perplexity and I tried it in ChatGPT. I like ChatGPT out the better.
Okay. Real quick, we're going to go online, then we'll come to you. Laura, did you want to share? Did you want to unmute?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, 1 second. We haven't heard online yet, so the audio needs to be adjusted, which means I need to somehow do that. 1 second. Let's just switch back to the owl. All right, go for it.
Can you hear me okay now? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I've used it for a lot of prompts. I've gotten information about doing plant tissue culturing and helped me source the mediums that I would need and the processes I would need to do in order to do tissue culturing in my place. It has helped me learn SQL, like I mentioned before, and it was literally not write me code. It was literally teach me from the very beginning. So it was downloading the clients and the servers and walking me through, how to structure a statement and all that kind of stuff. And it's the difference between using it as a tool and just using it as a copy paste kind of a thing is kind of how I approach AI. There's something I want to know. And so I always kind of query or structure my queries around that, those kind of things. But lately it's been helping me like outline documentation and evidentiary stuff for a court thing I'm about to do. So yeah.
Very interesting.
It's helpful. It's helpful when it's used correctly, I think.
What was that last part? Sorry, it faded out. It's helpful.
It's helpful when it's used correctly.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for saying that again. And over here. Oh, I know you do a lot of prompting. Anything you want to share?
Something that I like to do with my prompting is to do, to assign a role to the LLM, regardless of what that is. So if I'm doing like a social media post, getting ideas, assigning a role as like, you're a social media marketing expert, or the situation, the scenario, giving those details as part of the prompt, and also building in questions. So prompting the AI to not just give me the answer right away, but to ask any questions that it would need to execute on the query prior to executing on the query. So those are some things I like to do with prompts in general.
That's really great. And I hear from that and from Laura's description of the sequel, especially this aspect of really being intentional about how you're able to engage with the information it provides and learning, like the learning process as a reader of that information. Let's take a look at Perplexity. This one came up. Melinda had mentioned it as error as being one that should be on the list, and I intentionally left it off the list because I wanted to demonstrate it. And this is, as we know, a community college workshop. So what I'm going to do with Perplexity, which is really an answer engine. It's a GenAI based tool that also, with almost all of its initial responses, searches the live web for sources that it can use in providing its responses. And if you keep asking it in your conversations, eventually you can get it to stop using sources and just using its data set for its responses, though its primary functionality is as a super-powered search engine. But what I'm going to do is both demonstrate how it searches and also using Perplexity to provide examples of prompts that we might use as community college students to learn GenAI tools. So I am a community college student. I want to learn GenAI tools and effective prompts. What are some examples I can practice using with different GenAI tools? Some example prompts, specific there. Okay, so let's see what it does. Before I hit the submit button, I'll just note that it's just going to be searching the web. There are other aspects, there are other abilities and functionalities with these tools, including research tools in Perplexity. And also just a heads up, if you are a person with an EDU email, which students and employees at SCC are, you can get access to the pro version for free. But I'm not signed in currently, so it's just going to do the basic version. So here are prompts you can use right away, organized by goal and type of GenAI tool. Chatbots like ChatGPT or Perplexity, code tools like Replit, NotebookLM, image tools like DALL-E, Midjourney, etc. You can literally copy paste these and swap in your own details. Since I know everyone in this meeting has used GenAI tools before, I'm not going to comment on what it was doing and the process of generation, but I'll just mention that some of these examples. So you are a community college study coach. Help me learn the basics of cell biology. Give me a 30-minute study plan and a 5-question quiz at the end. Keep the language simple, like I'm in my first year of college. You are a patient tutor. Explain the topic to me as if I'm new to it, using a concrete real-life example. Then give me 3 practice questions and tell me if my answers are correct when I reply. Writing and editing. Draft a 250-word response to this prompt. Keep the tone academic but simple, and leave X parts as insert example here, so I can fill in my own details. And so on and so forth. It gives dozens of examples. And then if I scroll all the way to the bottom, just to highlight the Perplexity aspect, it is providing these sources from the web as sources that it used to generate its own responses, including, as you can see, websites like Grammarly and Harvard, as well as social media like Reddit, even LibGuides, library guides from Pitt Community College, et cetera, et cetera. Any thoughts on this before we move on? Perplexity, prompting. Okay. So let's stop for a second and pivot over to the second main aspect of this presentation, which is ethics and the ethical use of GenAI. So I usually ask folks, what does ethics mean to you? But since we're running short on time, I'm just going to jump into it. The basics of ethics is that we can think of ethics as really how our moral code is exhibited in everyday life. And when I say moral code, I'm thinking of two things. One, what we agree to as human beings in society, or what's called the social contract. And two, breaking that down, what is good and what is bad? And that is a very, very deep question with a lot of conversations. In fact, thousands of years of philosophers have thought about these questions. And we have about 30 more seconds to think about them on this slide before we move on. What is good and bad ends up equating to right and wrong, and often somewhere in between, because we live in a society of diverse viewpoints and diverse people. And even the most totalitarian and draconian societies still have rigorous debate about what should be right or wrong. And often these stem from a lot of different sources. What is right and wrong to us as individuals, as well as what is external, what is being fed to us from other people, organizations, conversations on a cultural level, etc. And the many contexts that we live in often have competing ideas around ethics. And those contexts, just to have a couple examples, work. What does your work think about X, Y, or Z? School. What does your school think about X, Y, or Z? Family, religion, your friend group, all of these different social groups, social organizations are different contexts, and often they are very fluid with one another and often competing with one another. I see online, ethics around AI are so complicated at this point. Thank you for that. Yes, there's often like extremes, but we often land somewhere in between and left with our head hanging and questions and more questions. And then another comment, it's an ethical mire from bottom to top, from the data centers chugging out CO2 and gobbling up resources to the outright plagiarism that is the basis for LLMs. Those are just a couple of the big ethical areas, and they also are connected to other areas. So thank you for that. Anything else? Toby, do you have any thoughts on ethics as well? Shaking one's head, as one does. I think, though, what is important is going back to the first word on this slide, stopping. We can all take a break and stop at any given point and ask ourselves, what is our perspective on anything in life when it comes to ethics and morality? And that includes AI. So just because this is one slide in the middle of this presentation doesn't mean it ends here. Remembering that you can revisit the good, the bad, the right or wrong at any time is key. So to kind of rip off Laura's comment, here are some of the major ethical issues or categories of issues. I'm going to go through these pretty quick since we have about 6 minutes left. Issues around citation, issues around intellectual theft, where the data centers are, or where the data sets are sourcing their information. Access issues. Not everybody knows about this technology. Not everybody has easy access to it, similar to other types of technology. Environmental impact. These technologies use a lot of electricity, a lot of impact on our water bodies. Impacts on learning and cognitive development. We see a lot of issues around information overload. Since everybody here is connected to libraries, I'm mentioning that. I like to bring that up with students because some students are aware of the threshold of information and how much we can get at a single time. And some students have never even heard of it. And it's like, what? Oh, is that why I'm feeling anxious and overwhelmed when I get walls of text over and over and over again? Safeguards and oversight. So who is controlling this information? Are there rules around the information that is being provided and generated in the context of these tools. Also, what types of topics are permissible, what are not, what are off limits. And a big one for me that I like to reference often is all of the biases and different types of limitations in knowledge and output that are based around human knowledge generally, and how these tools can perpetuate a lot of these biases. Here's some additional thought conversations, food for thought. Privacy considerations. When you're entering in your conversations, your prompting, where is that data going? Where is your information going? Workforce and job transformation, and how the workforce will be and already has been impacted by these tools. What does it mean that there is cultural normalization around this? When my mom sends me an AI video and I'm part of the family group chat, do I call my mom out about the AI video she sent me for the ethical issues that are at play, including the environmental impact? Or do we just kind of go along for the ride? And similarly to that, there is a growing movement of people that are actively rejecting and are anti-AI. What does it mean to be involved in accepting versus rejecting this technology? And how do we participate? And another big one is that these are keywords that you can look up, is this idea that AI is rotting our brain. And this concept of AI slop, or the idea that what gets generated by AI, especially we're seeing this with images, memes, videos, is really valueless, especially when compared to other types of human creativity. And as we saw with the agentic AI conversation, some of this stuff can just be created by algorithms automatically without any human intervention or human prompting. So what does that mean if humans are not even part of the generative process? Anyone want to chime in on any of these ethical buckets before we move on? All right, there's a lot to unpack there. At the same time, as we saw with Perplexity, there may be some use. There may be some really, really awesome help that GenAI tools can provide to us as students and educators. Here are some of them. I really want to get to the final activity, but consider the flip side to the ethical coin, which is, where are these tools able to help us? Now let's move on to our second mystery activity. It's another AHA slides. I'm gonna open it up here if I can remove this toolbar here. Yeah. 1 second. Not this one. Not this one. How do I go back? Here we go. All right. We have another AHA slides with another QR code. And I see one person's in here. And I'm gonna read 3 scenarios. I'm gonna go a little bit over time, but trust me on this, they're gonna be great. Really helpful. Stick around if you can. I see 2 people in. Wait, one more moment. We can come back to the slides and you can join in a bit after I read the first scenario. So first scenario, I want you to actually, before I start the scenario, I want you to think about if you would consider the following scenario an ethical use of AI or not. Is it a good use or a bad use of AI based on your own values, your own ethical code? So scenario 1, Maya is a community college student in Comp 1 who starts using GenAI to brainstorm topics for a 5-page argumentative essay, but quickly shifts into asking it to create the outline, draft the introduction, and generate body paragraphs, and she only lightly edits the text before submitting it as her own work. The syllabus allows AI for brainstorming, but prohibits submitting AI-generated writing. And Maya also uses AI to add citations, including sources she hasn't read or verified. Maya feels justified because she's overwhelmed with work and family responsibilities and believes AI is just an advanced writing tool like Grammarly. Let's go back to the AHA slides. Yes, this is ethical. No, this is not ethical. It's complicated. I don't know. Okay, we have 2 people in the room, so no, this is not ethical. Would anyone like to chime in on why they think this way? Why is it not ethical? Anybody? We're just going to flat out say it's no. All right, thanks. Yes, good. Thank you, Laura.
And mentions of what the syllabus did or did not allow. And it seemed as though we were getting a little bit into the area of academic dishonesty, passing, as Laura said, none of its original thought. What is being submitted is not the thought of the student. So I think that's where we go away from brainstorming. We got a little into academic dishonesty.
Great. Thank you. Now, if there were more people in the room and there were different responses, we could do a light debate, but we're going to go to the next scenario just for time. Scenario 2. Jordan, a community college student in general biology with a documented learning disability, uses GenAI as a study support tool to summarize dense textbook readings into simpler language, generate practice quiz questions, explain confusing concepts in different ways, and help create a study plan. Jordan doesn't use AI during quizzes or exams and does not submit AI-generated work as assignments, but hesitates to tell the professor because the course policy does not mention AI, and Jordan fears being accused of cheating. Some classmates also don't have access to the same tools or don't know how to use them effectively. Let's go to the next question. Is this an ethical use of GenAI? How do we feel about Jordan?
That last sentence, Greg. That last sentence.
That last sentence makes it ethical, not ethical, complicated.
Last sentence. It seems that it is an ethical use, that Jordan is using it in an academically ethical way, but there are certainly complicated concerns around access for other classmates and understanding of the tools that I think make it a little bit complicated, but I would say I did go, yes, it's ethical in the ethical question.
Okay. You could have put it's complicated.
I could.
Let's go to the final of the 3 scenarios. Lena works part-time at a local HR staffing office while attending community college, and to work faster, she copies candidate resumes and interview notes, including personal details and her impressions, into a GenAI tool to draft rejection emails, summarize strengths and weaknesses, and recommend which applicants to advance. Her supervisor encourages efficiency but provides no clear AI policy, and Lena gets praised for her productivity, until IT flags her behavior as a privacy and data security risk, since the AI tool may store or reuse data. Lena did not intend harm and thought she was simply using a helpful workplace tool. Is this an ethical use of GenAI? Final scenario. All right, we've got a no, this is not ethical. And it's complicated. Yes, finally. Finally, 2 different diverging viewpoints. Real quick, does anyone want to chime in on their thoughts on this one? Laura, anything you want to share? Yes, go for it.
Okay, so there's an ethical way of doing what Lena or the person in the scenario wanted to do. But if IT flagged it, then it could have been that she was sharing things like personal details or whatnot into the AI. If she would have taken her documentation and stripped it of identification, it would have protected her a lot more with IT and sharing, data. And then that's why, you just keep like identities out of it. So it could have been a proper use, an ethical use of AI to have her help her do her work. But the problem is if she's putting people's personal details into an AI tool and feeding it into an LLM, which that LLM is then collecting data. And I mean, we don't know how and where it's collecting data, but I can almost guarantee you it's recording every query and every return and also evaluating all of that stuff. So you just have to be really, really careful about what kind of data you feed into AI, especially when you're in, a work or especially a healthcare setting. When you have things like HIPAA that can affect, those are federal laws, and the problem is there's not regulation that has caught up with AI yet. So there's no like genuine box rule firm regulation to restrict certain uses of AI. So it's just left it completely up to the companies to deal with it.
Thank you so much, Laura. Yeah, that is huge. And I think one thing that I like to kind of close on with these scenarios is that while they may have direct and positive or negative impact in the moment, and a person that does something that can potentially put data at risk, that might even be a fireable offense. At the end of the day, it's all very fluid too. So recognizing that we are all learning as we are doing is really important. But being aware of these issues from the beginning can also be really helpful to avoid some of those negative effects or results. I love this image. Ethics is messy. So being aware that, we may or may not have our own ethical code. We may or may not be aware fully of the different issues that are at stake. We're all trying to make our way through it, and we can all do so together. So real quick, the final thing I'm going to close with, I'm not going to get to the workforce implications today, but just a few student recommendations. When you're doing work at the college and in higher ed, think about reviewing the syllabus and or assignment language and talk with your instructor about what is permitted. Be aware that there are many different opinions, different ethical codes and stances across the college, especially amongst the faculty. If you use one of these tools, be forthcoming about it. Be transparent that you've done so and state that you've done so in your submission language. Acknowledge your own over-reliance or issues with the tools, how it may or may not be helping or hindering your learning and your critical thinking as well, especially in the context, as we saw with that first student example of our busy lives, where we may have a lot of things pulling us in a lot of directions at any given time. And because we are a library, we are really all about information and education around that information. So staying up to date on what's happening with this technology is really important. It's impacting us now. It's going to in the near future. So stay up to date with news and trends. If you want more information, stop by the library for that. And real quick, our additional workshops this quarter, we're doing a topical series called Un-AI-Voidable or Unavoidable. We have one on search results that's coming up later this month and one on career workflows in the beginning of March. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And if you have any questions, let us know. And we will be sharing the recording and a survey later on in the quarter. Thank you. How do I turn off the recording? There we go.